Witch Finding in ancient Babylon. The evil witch is at work, thrusting thorns into waxen images, made in our shape that we may suffer the torment brought about by sympathetic magic. A loud knocking resounds at the door. We tremble anew, and the children scream. At last, the dread powers of evil have come to summon us to the final ordeal, or perhaps the witch herself, grown bold by the reason of her immunity, has come to wreak fresh vengeance. The flimsy door of boards is blown open, and to our unspeakable belief, the stern face of the Ishipu appears beneath the flickering light. We shout with joy, and the children cluster around the priest, clinging to his garment. I think we've already found our witch. The priest smiles at our fear, and monitoring us to sit in a circle, produces several wax figures of demons, which he places on the floor. It is noticeable that these figures are bound with miniature ropes. Marduk's alternative name is Azaru, meaning to bind. Marduk was bound to the seven. The Egyptian Osiris is also known as Azaru, and he was torn apart and then bound back together from several parts. And this was done to Osiris by Set, the war god. Azaru, to bind, is also the name of the red angel Uriel, the angel who collected the red clay, from which to form man. What they mean is the teraphim, the Anunnaki, and this is related to the several wax demons created by the priest, taking one of these in the shape of a Labatu or hag demon. The priest makes an offering to the demons, and places before it 12 small cakes, representing the original zodiac, the brood of Tiamat. And don't forget, Zuzu means gold or sweet. These cakes are made from a peculiar kind of meal. I think we all know what's inside there, don't we? The food of the gods. Lest we forget, the gods are like vampires. Yes. He is invoking Pazuzu. The next part touches on the Pitpi ritual, awakening the statue of Pazuzu. Elu-M, awakening the watchers from their slumber, as he then pours out a libation, places the image of a small dog besides that of the witch, lays a piece of the heart of a young pig on the mouth of the figure, and some white bread, and a box of ointment beside it. He then chants something like the following: "May a guardian spirit be present at my side when I draw unto the sick person, when I examine his muscles, when I compose his limbs, when I sprinkle the water of Iyah upon him. Avoid thee, whether thou art an evil spirit, or an evil demon, an evil ghost, or an evil devil, an evil god, or an evil fiend, hag demon, ghoul, sprite, phantom or wraith, or any disease, fever, headache, shivering, or any sorcery, spell or enchantment. Ironically, the Ashipu is the sorcerer. The ointment offered to the demons was probably snake oil. Having recited such words of power, the Ashipu then directs us to keep the figure at the head of our bed for 3 nights, then to bury it beneath the earthen floor. But alas, no cure results. Fee, fo, fi, fum, I smell the blood of a black mass, where everything is reversed. For example, being buried and then rising 3 days later. The Ashipu, Marduk, and the Anunnaki revel in raising the dead from within the mud hut, the realm of Ea, the gods of the abyss. The witch still torments us by day and by night, and once more we have recourse to our priest-doctor. The ceremony is gone through again, probably repeated over 7 days. But still the family health does not improve. The little ones suffer from fever, and bad luck constantly dogs us. After a stormy scene between husband and wife, who differ, argue over the qualifications of the Ashipu, and another practitioner is called in. He is younger and more enterprising than the last, and he has not yet learned that half the business of the Ashipu is to nurse his patients, that is, in the financial sense of the term, whereas the elderly Ashipu had gone quietly home to bed after prescribing for us this young physician, who has his intention to be successful. After being consulted, goes home to his clay surgery and looks for an appropriate Ashipu exorcism ritual. The next day, armed with this wordy weapon, he arrives at our dwelling, placing a waxen image of a witch upon the floor, vents upon it in the full force of his rhetoric. This is the voodoo that I do so well, probably. As he is on the point of leaving, screams resound from a neighboring cabin, bestowing upon us a look of the deepest meaning. Our Ashipu darts to the hut opposite and hails forth an ancient crone. I remind you that the Ashipu was the banker, so he's setting up an exorcism next door to a property he may want to acquire, because if you prove that the person is a witch, you gained their property. Now go ahead, tell me that this doesn't sound a wee bit fishy. The appearance of the person living next door, the so-called crone, was old, and together with her illness, gave her a most sinister look. I'd say she's being targeted, and the Ashipu are playing with a fire they do not understand, a fire they no longer understand. This is mirrored, it is indirect. The Ashipu used the idols, then he uses the young man, who then uses the old woman next door, and all of the aforementioned are related in some way or form to demonic possession. All of this grief and strife would create the food for the gods. Ni Melum Fear. The fool, the priest, smiles at our fear. The old woman next door. At once we recognize her as a wretch, a blight, who dared to menace our children, due to the psychological damage achieved by the Ishipu, meaning the fear they conjured within the family. Ironically, due to the witchcraft used by the Ishipu. The witch is said to have menaced the children when in innocent play, like wearing a gimp suit to a nursery. They cast hot ashes upon her thatched roof and introduce hot swamp water into her cistern. Who is menacing who? Who is using wax figurines, scaring the shit out of people, using incantations and dabbling with demons? The Ishipu, of course. In so-called righteous wrath, we lay hands on the abandoned being, who for so many months has cast a blight upon our lives. She exclaims that the pains of death have seized upon her, and we laugh in triumph. What a bunch of dicks. For they know that the superior magic, the voodoo that they do so well, has taken effect. On the way to the river, we are joined by neighbors, who rejoice with us, and by doing this publicly, they spread the mental disease, fear, doubt, and suspicion, and also how to take a property you desire. Rejoice with us, in that we have caught the witch. Great is the satisfaction of the party, when at last the devilish crone is cast headlong into the stream. But here, many seconds pass, we begin to look incredulously, in a manner of disbelief, upon each other, for the wicked one refuses to sink. This means she is innocent, and the whole party are guilty, which means they should be put to death, and the old woman takes their house. They may be working together. I would like to know how many times this method was successful. Probably 0, because we all float. Then the awful moment, the realization that they were wrong, and the price they pay. The old woman is dying, and the family will be put to death. The children are enslaved, and the houses go to the Ishipu, the banker, pronounced wanker. The awful moment when every eye is directed upon them, the family, who were so happy and light-hearted a moment before. We tremble, for we know how severe are the laws against the indiscriminate accusation of those suspected of witchcraft, meaning it is also used to protect the Ishipu, not the people but the Ishipu, those dabbling in witchcraft. As the ancient crone continues to float, a loud murmuring arises from the crowd, and with quaking limbs and eyes full of terror, we snatch up our children and make a dash for freedom. For I was right about the consequences of such actions, and all of this terror benefits the Ishipu. Only the Ishipu could prove somebody was a witch. Nobody else was qualified. In fact, it was forbidden to the general public. Luckily, the Ishipu accompanies us so that the crowd dare not pursue. And indeed, so absurdly changeable is human nature. Most of the crowd are busied in rescuing the old woman. In a few minutes, we have placed all immediate danger of pursuit behind us. The Ishipu has departed to his temple because he was the accuser, and becomes richer in the experience by the lesson of a false prescription. After a hurried consultation, we quit the town. We leave. Exodus, one could say. Skirt the arable land which surrounds it, and plunge into the desert. She who was opposed to the employment of a young and inexperienced Ishipu does not make any matters better by reiterating, "I fucking told you so." And he who favored a second opinion on paying a night visit to the city discovers that the witch has succumbed to her harsh treatment, that her house has been made over to her relatives by way of compensation. This is how the Ishipu get out of things when they are caught in the act. Yes, I'm right. It's because a legal process has been taken out against him, the father of the family. But of course it was the Ishipu who made the claim, and what happened to them is now silenced. Returning to his wife, he acquaints her with the sad news, and hand in hand with their weeping offspring, they turn and face the desert.